us a home. How about that? How about just giving people that need a home inside? Then we'd be inside. You just want to just throw us to the rats.
Our children, and the murder rates are plummeting. We are now able to report that the murder rate is on track to be the lowest in U.S. history, in modern recorded U.S. history, thanks to this team behind me and President Trump's priorities.
The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth, much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it.
Starting tomorrow, there will be no more homeless people allowed in Washington, D.C. The president just made this post on social media announcing his plans for tomorrow, saying, "We're having a news conference tomorrow in the White House. I'm going to make our capital safer and more beautiful than it ever was before. The homeless have to move out immediately. We will give you places to stay, but far from the Capitol. The criminals, you don't have to move out. We're going to put you in jail where you belong." It's all going to happen very fast, just like the border. We went from millions pouring in to zero in the last few months. This will be easier. Be prepared. There will be no Mr. Nice Guy. We want our capital back. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And it looks like he has already started deploying U.S. Secret Service and Customs and Border Protection officers. They were on patrol in a nightlife district last night in Washington, D.C. as part of President Trump's increased law enforcement crackdown on crime.
I think Trump's trying to help people. Some people, he try to get homeless out of the city, though. That ain't gonna work.
It's like a band-aid to like a gunshot wound. It's not like providing an actual solution to what the problem is.
I don't think they should move them out. They're everywhere. I've been homeless before, so I know how it is. I have empathy for them.
Sure, okay, you're moving it. It's going somewhere else, and I think it's difficult to find a unified solution.
I feel like there's been an increase of like racial profiling. They shouldn't be, I guess, criminalized to begin with.
The homeless thing is like, you might not see, poop on the sidewalk, but you still might get robbed.
High cost of living, not enough mental health resources. You remove people, but what problems does that fix? It doesn't really do anything for the health of the city, I feel like.
Do you have any specifics about how homeless people will be dealt with, where they would be moved to? What does this look like?
I do, yes, and it's an important question, so thank you for raising it. The Metropolitan Police Department, with the support of the new federal agencies who have been surging on the streets of the District of Columbia, are going to enforce the laws that are already on the books here in Washington, D.C. For far too long, these laws have been completely ignored, and the homelessness problem has ravaged the city. So D.C. Code 22-1307 and D.C. Municipal Regulation 24-100 give the Metropolitan Police Department the authority to take action when it comes to homeless encampments. So homeless individuals will be given the option to leave their encampment, to be taken to a homeless shelter, to be offered addiction or mental health services, and if they refuse, they will be susceptible to fines or to jail time. Again, these are pre-existing laws that are already on the books. They have not been enforced, which is part of the reason for this federalizing of the National Guard to bring in this assistance for law enforcement. While we are targeting criminals and trying to remove criminals off of the streets, we also want to make DC safe and beautiful, and that involves removing mentally disturbed individuals and homeless encampments as well. So we will be using these regulations and code that already exists to clean up our streets, and we've already had great success. Not many of you picked up on this, but the United States States Park Police has actually done remarkable work in terms of removing homeless encampments from the city. Since the president signed this executive order in March, 70 homeless encampments have been removed by the U.S. Park Police. There are only 2 homeless encampments remaining in D.C. federal parks under the National Park Service's jurisdiction, and the removal of those 2 remaining camps is scheduled for this week. So the U.S. Park Police will be leading this effort alongside MPD.
U.S. President Donald Trump has deployed 800 National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. to crack down on crime and homelessness. He also demanded that homeless people move out of Washington immediately and put the D.C. police under federal control. Trump said this earlier before declaring a public safety emergency in the nation's capital.
It's becoming a situation of complete and total lawlessness. Caravans of mass youth rampage through city streets.
The city's mayor, Muriel Bowser, has rejected the president's claims about crime, and while there was a spike in 2023, statistics show that it has fallen since then. Violent crime in the city is also at a 30-year low. D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab has also called the administration's actions unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful. So, what's next? The president must notify Congress within 2 days if he plans to take control of D.C.'s police, but he can only keep control for up to 30 days under local law.
Trump is for the people, you know, he really understands us. Really. So, like, when he demands that all the homeless folks in Washington, D.C. get up and leave and, quote, go far away, you think that demonstrates how for the people he is? You know, homeless people who are well known for their flush with cash status and ability to make drastic life choices on the drop of a fucking hat? This miserable prick has never experienced life without a golden spoon up his ass, and you're sitting there acting like he's one of us. Let me learn you something here, Cletus. You are now, and always will be, closer to homeless than you ever will be to Trump. You know, he could lose 99% of his fucking wealth, and that would still be fucking true. So fuck you for the fact that you're more than willing to demonize the homeless community as being the cause of crime in Washington, D.C., like you didn't elect a 34-time convicted felon sex predator to go sit at 1600 Pennsylvania Ave for the next 4 fucking years. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like if you motherfuckers could see the hypocrisy in every goddamn thing you say. But apparently that will never come true because you seem to spout it at every goddamn turn. So get fucked.
As someone who stayed in a homeless shelter in DC for 2 weeks, I just want to take a second to address why Trump's plan to deal with homelessness in DC has zero basis in reality. To be clear, when I stayed in this homeless shelter, I was not actually experiencing homelessness. I was studying homelessness and urban issues as part of my degree at the University of North Carolina, and I was trying to amplify the voices of folks that were homeless. And I also want to be clear that I didn't stay there during a peak season, so I was not taking the bed away from anyone that needed it. The plan that Trump has to address homelessness, if you haven't heard of it, is essentially to offer free transportation for anyone that's experiencing homelessness to a homeless shelter, and to also offer them, and or, it wasn't clear, addiction support services and mental health services. And if they refuse these services, they receive fines and ultimately jail time because they are homeless and cannot pay these fines. The reason that this plan does not make any sense when you actually take a step further and really look at it, one, homeless shelters in DC do not have the funding to provide beds for all these folks. If everyone in this plan says yes, everyone that's experiencing homelessness in DC, and they are transported to homeless shelters, we simply do not have the funding to provide beds for all these people. There is literally no way. Two, even if we were to have beds for these folks and we brought them to a homeless shelter, what I don't think people understand, especially the general public in America, is what a homeless shelter is, given the current way that we fund them. Look around. This is what the average American thinks a homeless shelter is. This is a 5-star hotel. A homeless shelter, when I stayed in one, I stayed in the nicest homeless shelter in DC. It had rats. It had bed bugs. I was sleeping 20 people to a room. Mine happened to be separated by gender, so it was all women, but that's 20 small cots that are the size of like half the size of a twin bed, and where you can literally feel the springs from the mattress poking you in your back as you sleep. That's what a homeless shelter is. Just to give you a clear idea, because I don't think people really have an idea of what it is to live, like what it's like to live in a homeless shelter. It is not a 5-star hotel, which is what I think people are literally imagining. 3, when you go to a homeless shelter, you need to have a job in order to be eligible for other benefits. So when you leave that homeless shelter for 8 hours a day to go work at a job, if you're lucky enough to get one without a permanent residence and like maybe without documentation, your stuff is in this homeless shelter. There are not lockers at this homeless shelter. Your stuff, even though it may be minimal, whatever clothes you have, whatever stuff you have, might get stolen. when you come back at the end of the day after working that long shift so that you're eligible for other benefits like SNAP and like housing and urban development to eventually get permanent housing, your bed could be gone. They could just wrap up your stuff and it could be gone. Like they could give it to someone else. So that's a very real possibility. And I think the last and biggest one that people are forgetting is that people are not often coming to these homeless shelters alone. You know what a lot of homeless people have? Kids. And imagine sleeping on a mattress that is half the size of a twin mattress with you and another human being. Now you have your kid because they don't give them a separate bed. So now they're in this bed with you. And when you go off to that job that you probably have, you know where you have to leave your kid? In this homeless shelter. Because you know what we don't have? Universal childcare. And you are now leaving your kid in this room with 19 other people that probably have substance abuse issues and mental health issues. If you live in New York, you've probably experienced like a homeless person chasing you, homeless person yelling in your face. That's just reality because they're experiencing a lot of issues. They're literally living on the street. That's not their fault. But like, imagine leaving your kid in a room with 19 of these people. You would never do it. And if you did, they would probably experience some sort of abuse. And then CPS comes and then you no longer have a kid. So these are like just some very basic issues. There's tons of other reasons, but these are just some very basic reasons why this plan just does not make sense. There is just no way to execute this plan. We do not have the funding to execute this plan effectively. And to send like homeless folks fines makes no sense. It is really just a plot to imprison homeless folks. That's really what this is.
Where will we go? It's one of many signs within the massive homeless encampment at Columbus Park in San Jose. Starting next Monday, the city will begin clearing people out.
We keep hearing the hotels are going to be open, the hotels aren't going to be open, the tent city's going to be open, it's not going to be open.
Founder of the Unhoused Response Group, Sean Cartwright, was at the encampment all day on Monday. She said earlier that morning, people living in their RVs found out about what's called an RV buyback program the city is offering.
So the buyback program is if you want to sell your RV, you'll get $2,000, but only on your way to the hotel. And I know people will say, well, you had notice because it's been posted for months, but nobody knew the details that there was even going to be a buyback program.
We spoke with Jerry Drawhorn, who said that buyback program doesn't work for him.
They couldn't give me what this is worth.
Mayor Matt Mahan said the abatement at Columbus Park will be over the course of 3 months.
But again, this will be slow, methodical, thoughtful. We don't use the word sweep because we're not sweeping people away. We're offering people housing, shelter, safe places to go, and we will be very methodical about that.
There aren't enough shelter beds for every unhoused person in San Jose, but the hope is more and more sites will continue to open. Home First CEO Renee Ramirez met us at the safe sleeping site off Taylor Street. Tents will go on the black platforms. It was expected to open in June, now first week of September.
The hope is that this happens over time as shelter opportunities come online, right? I don't think we're expecting everyone to be off of Columbus Park next week. We expect the abatement process to begin next week.
Ramirez said the former Bristol Hotel, one of the 5 hotels the city is converting into temporary housing, is expected to be open at the beginning of next week. In San Jose, Lauren Martinez, ABC 7 News.
Washington, D.C. is under the spotlight after a major crackdown on homeless encampments. City officials say it's about safety and cleanliness, but critics argue it's criminalizing poverty and pushing vulnerable people further into crisis. From tents being torn down to residents being displaced overnight, this is a battle over public space, policy, and compassion. You've witnessed what's happening, why it's happening now, and how it's impacting real lives on the ground. Behind every tent is a story, a struggle, and a human being. We can debate policy all day, but we can't ignore the reality that homelessness is not solved by pushing people out of sight. What's your take? Is this necessary for public safety or a cruel move against the most vulnerable? Share your perspective in the comments and let's talk about solutions, not just outrage. Like this video, subscribe for more ground-level reporting, and don't forget to hit the bell. The fight over DC's streets isn't ending anytime soon. Just a quick note, full credit goes to the original creators of these videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.